T-minus 5, 3, 4, 2, 1. Yes, I counted that wrong because I just got out of bed, and that's how I feel this morning. You are tuned into the Charlie Rocket Show. I'm out of bed, and there was one thing on my mind this morning. But before I get into that one thing, I just want to let you know that we officially have a title for this show. It is called The Charlie Rocket Show. I did a poll on Instagram and you guys helped me out. And we came up with the most basic, the most generic name ever created in podcasting history. We just said my name and put show after it. But that's okay, because I was told it's all about the branding. And branding is important. What's also important is this microphone being at the right level. All right, let me adjust. Boom. What's also important is that sun getting out of my eye. Good God Almighty Jesus. All right, we are now officially starting the Charlie Rocket Show, the most underwhelming name of all time show. My name is Charlie Rocket, aka CEO Charlie. CEO Charlie's going to be telling some amazing stories from his past today. AKA Cadillac Chuck, AKA Knick Knack Paddywhack, Chucky got a Cadillac, AKA I drive a Tesla now. No more Cadillacs. I might be Malibu Chuck one day, but right now I'm Mr. Manhattan Beach. It's a beautiful day here by the beach. The sun's up. Looking at these flowers I bought my girlfriend on the table. Once again, I'm recording at my kitchen table because my lava mic did not work. I would rather be walking around. I would actually rather be driving to Starbucks right now to get some coffee with you guys. But I saw an article. The article said in the third quarter of 2018, hip-hop accounted for 71% of top 10 records in the country. Hold on. Let's not just glaze over the fact that 71% is from a genre that maybe 90% of people would have said, no, hold on, not even 90. 99% of people, let's say 30 years ago, would have said that would never be possible. This show is not about hip-hop. I'm going to talk about hip-hop. But this show is about what's possible. This show is about success and how anyone can prove everyone wrong. It's about becoming successful and doing things your way. So let's jump into this real quick. I had to pull up some stats. 56% of records in the country this year in the top 10 were hip-hop records. There's never been a genre that has had that much, like pop, country, rock. The highest ever was in the 40s. And here you have hip-hop approaching 60%. Hold on. Actually, let me pull up this article real quick. Let me make sure this number is right. I'm reading an article here, and it says hip-hop and pop has essentially switched places in 3 years. Year to date, hip-hop as a primary genre accounts for 63% of all Hot 100 top 10s, the highest amount for any genre since hits songs deconstruction began tracking data in 2013. The figure best pops 49% take in 2015. So the highest percentage ever was 49%. And here you have hip-hop, 63%. This is incredible, but to me, this is inspirational. Not just because I come from hip-hop, but that this proves that a business or a person can do things his or her way, and every single person who's set in their ways can say, that's not how it's done. That's not possible. You will never make it if you do it that way. This is proof that you can. On Spotify, 38 out of the top 50 songs in the United States of America are hip-hop records. I think this is incredible. Hip-hop inspires me every day because it shows me that you can break every single rule. You could do things your way. You cannot be safe. And you can become the biggest in the world. And not just the biggest by a little bit. You can become the biggest by a margin that nobody can ever compete with. So the next time somebody's telling you, you can't do that, just look at what's going on in our culture right here today, and it'll remind you, yes, I can. So moving on, there's something going on in my life right now that I'm having to make a decision on. I just finished writing my book, The Life and Death of CEO Charlie. And I'm talking with my author. His name is Jake Green. It's who I wrote it with. He's a 3 times New York Times bestselling author. And we met with a publisher. And the publisher said, well, you're not big enough. You're not a big enough celebrity for us to take on your book. You know, reach back out to us when you have more followers on Instagram and a bigger network of friends who are also celebrities. And I was thinking to myself, like, this really, really sucks. This industry sucks. So then I immediately go into the mindset of, okay, how do I do this myself? And I'm like, okay, my number one goal is to become a New York Times bestseller. How many do I have to sell to be a New York Times bestseller? And then come to find out, it's anywhere between 10,000 and 25,000 sales in 1 week. And I think to myself, oh, that's not hard. You know, like I'm gonna go do podcasts. I'm gonna message all my fans. I have a very, very strong fan base. I'm gonna go out and do public speaking events and promote it. And I'm gonna utilize all my resources. But then I found out that's not even how the New York Times bestseller list works. There's this bureaucracy and these rules to becoming a New York Times bestseller. See, they survey different stores to where you can't just go sell 20,000 books on Amazon. You have to be in Barnes and Nobles. You have to be in Hudson bookstores, and you have to be a little on Amazon. You have to be on all of them, and they survey different ones to determine if you're going to be on the list. And I'm like, this is a trap. Because this is going to force somebody to have to get a publishing deal with a traditional publishing company, which is going to take most all of the money from the book. And what exactly are they going to do? Well, they're going to distribute it to stores that people aren't particularly going to. Now, yes, we all want to be in stores. It's nice. But, I mean, people are buying books on Amazon, especially people my age. Like, we're buying books on Amazon. I do go to Barnes & Nobles. I would love to walk into Barnes & Nobles and see my book. But it's not just about Barnes & Nobles. It's about all these different stores. So I'm like, I see what's going on. The old heads have set up a system to trap us into feeding it. This New York Times bestseller thing has nothing to do with selling books. It has everything to do with making sure an author has to go through a traditional publishing company. Honestly, it reminds me a lot about when I was first in the music industry and wanted to get a record deal. I'll tell some stories about that. But I'm at a crossroads. Just to backtrack a little bit, I'm at a crossroads. I've written a book, The Life and Death of CEO Charlie, and I want it to be a New York Times bestseller. But I also don't want to give up all the rights. They're going to tell me, Charlie, this is how it's done. This is how it's always done. And to me, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Why would I give up the rights to my book? Why would I give up all the money out of my book just to be in this country club of New York Times bestseller? What do you think I should do? If you're listening right now, shoot me a message on Instagram. I'm at Charlie on Instagram if you don't follow me. But what do you think I should do? I want my story to get heard. I want this book to inspire so many lives. But there's something about the way the old industry works. And for a publishing company to tell me that I'm not big enough, I mean, it immediately sent me into CEO Charlie mode, where I'm like, I'm gonna do this myself. All right, I'm back. I've been here before in my life, believe it or not. And it was in hip hop when I was brand new in it, just like I'm brand new right now in this motivation and inspiration and author space. I remember when I got fired from being Soulja Boy's cameraman. I had dropped out of college. I had to beg my mom to even let me go on tour with Soulja Boy because I was in college. I had just got done paying for my books. And I got a phone call from Interscope Records. I picked up the phone. He said, I hear, this is Brian Washington with the Interscope Records. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is big. At the time, I owned a little hip-hop website called spitshowgame.com where, I was a cameraman and I made videos for local Atlanta independent artists. And Brian Washington said, we just signed this new artist out of Mississippi, and he wants you to be his cameraman and go on tour with him. I'm thinking to myself, I'm looking around in my environment. I'm at the school, at the little local community college, just got done paying for my books. And I said, oh my goodness, yes, I will take the job immediately, but I have to convince my mother to let me drop out of school. And he said, okay, call me back, let me know. I drive home and I say, Ma, I just got a call from Interscope Records and they want me to go on tour with a rapper. She looked at me, and you know what moms would think about hip hop and tour. Immediately, probably going through her mind, she's thinking to herself, groupies and tour buses and drugs. I mean, Soulja Boy is this upcoming rapper, and there's probably going to be girls everywhere. And I said, Ma, no, please let me go. Like, this is a big opportunity. And convincing my mom of things, she's a tough cookie, but I knew it was possible because there's been a couple times in my life where I've been able to convince her of things in the past. I remember one of the hardest things I had to convince her of is when I was around 12 years old. I was suing this guy named Jason Bard for a saxophone I sold him. And I made up a contract and gave him a little payment plan, and he stopped paying me. So I tell my dad, man, we need to sue him. I need my $700. Well, we took him to small claims court, and he didn't even show up. And I said, Dad, like, what? Like, how do I get my money? Like, can we get the police involved? And he says, man, it's just going to be a long situation because it's not a ton of money. It's a small claims file. And fast forward about 3 weeks, and I got a FedEx package in the mail. I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, I've never had a package like a letter like delivered via FedEx that had my name on it before. And I got it and I opened it up and I started reading the letter, and it says, "We want to bring you to New York. We're going to guarantee your saxophone is paid for. We're going to give you an all-expense trip. You're going to stay in the Park Central Hotel. There's going to be a black car pick you up from the airport." And the letter was from Judge Hatchett's TV show. And I was thinking to myself, ooh, CEO Charlie is alive and well. This is about to be one of the most exciting things in my life. I'm going to be on TV. I get to go to New York. But I got to convince my parents. I go to my mom and dad. I said, Ma, we're going to be on TV. I got a letter in the mail from Judge Hatchett. And my mom and dad said, that is white trash television. There is no way in hell we're going to New York, because one of my parents would have had to be with me because I was underage. Just a teenager. But I was able to wear my parents down with my sales knowledge that I've learned actually from them. My family always sold vacuum cleaners. My grandfather started selling vacuum cleaners in 1952. My dad sold vacuum cleaners. My mom sold vacuum cleaners. And I wanted to sell vacuum cleaners. If somebody can sell a $2,000 vacuum cleaner by knocking on a stranger's door, then they can sell anything. Long story short, I was able to convince my mom to let me go to New York. My dad appeared with me on it, and that footage exists somewhere. I can't say I'm exactly proud of it, but you know, when you're 12 years old, you don't understand what white trash TV is. All you think about is this TV. The second time I had to convince my mother of something crazy, I also dealt with New York. I'm about 16 years old, and I had a business partner. I had an e-commerce business, and I met him on AOL Instant Messenger, and we got suppliers, and we built websites, and we were selling stuff, and we were making some pretty good money. And I told my mom, I said, "Ma, I want to go to New York to meet my business partner." She says, "You have a business partner?" But I said, "Yeah, I have a business partner." She said, "Well, what's his name?" I said, "His name is Khan." And she said, "Oh, no. Khan?" I said, no, that's like his real name, Khan. And she said, "Well, does he live with his parents?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, how old is he?" I said, 16. And she said, "Well, where does he live?" I said, "Well, he has his own place. He lives in a basement of somebody's house in Brooklyn." And my mom is just picturing me going to New York, this massive city, the biggest city in the United States of America, all by myself, going to hang out with some kid named Khan who lives in a basement by himself that I met on the internet. Just imagine what's going through my mom's head. But with my old sales tactics, I was able to convince my mother to go to New York. And I remember I'm going to the airport. My mom is crying. My mom is in boo-hoo tears, like, "My little baby, please call me." And she has some stipulations. The stipulations were that I had to stay at this hostel that nuns ran in the Chelsea neighborhood of New York. And there was this vacuum cleaner salesman that had to be my chaperone a couple of times while I was there to keep an eye out on me. But I agreed to her terms, and I'm off to New York. I'm wearing my iPod Shuffle around my neck like it was a pendant, like a diamond necklace. But to me, I mean, I felt cool. It was my necklace. It was my pendant. And I remember I was listening on the plane to Gucci Mane, "So Icy." All the girls excited. Ooh, you know I like it. I'm so icy. And I'm looking around, and I hope people are like noticing me, and I've got my hip hop swag, and I'm like, I'm about to be rich. I'm going to New York City, and I was able to convince my mother to let me go. I went to New York. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. Went to the Yankees game, came back and said, see, Ma, it all worked out. So here I am. I just left the community college, came back to the house. I told my mom that I want to go on tour with a rapper, and I've got to drop out of school. She did some thinking. She was pondering. She saw the puppy dog look in my eye and the ambition in my heart. And she said, you know what? When a door opens, you got to walk through it. And if it doesn't work out, you can always go back to school. I was like, yes. I remember I called Brian Washington back immediately and said, I'm in. I don't even care what y'all are paying me. I'm in. And I go on tour with Soulja Boy. 6 months in, I remember Soulja Boy. I mean, we're traveling. First of all, I don't want to glaze over the fact. Soulja Boy had the #1 song in the world. We are on top of the world. I even appeared in one of his music videos. If you go look at the music video Soulja Girl, you will see my cameo in it. And I remember he gave me this diamond necklace to wear. Like he wanted his team to be, fresh and fly. And I'm wearing this diamond necklace. And one day he asked for it back. He said, I just want to get it cleaned. I was like, okay. All right, cool. Yeah, no problem, bro. Gave it back to him. And the next day I remember we were going to Jimmy Kimmel. But I hadn't got my itinerary yet. So I'm proactive. I just go to the airport the next morning. We're going to LA. Nobody was answering my phone calls. Not Soulja Boy, not the management. The record label never knows about the flight itinerary. It's always like the management. Nobody's answering my phone calls. Not A-Rap. Not Soulja Boy. And then I called Soulja Boy's DJ. He said, man, nobody's answering my calls either. Then it hit me about 2 hours in to just sitting there at the airport. I said, I think we're fired. And I went home to my mom and I said, Ma, I think I'm fired. And she, she's a compassionate woman. But she said, if you're not going to be in school, you have to pay rent. I'm like, Ma, I just lost my job. Like I got to pay rent. She said, if you're not in school, you've got to pay rent. And immediately I went into my delusional optimism mode. And this is a little secret I have in my life that y'all will hear as a recurring theme, is that even if all ships are sinking, I'm going to look for the delusional I'm going to be a delusional optimist. That's the long story short. I'll say, look at the lifeboat. Oh, that's great. Titanic sinking, but here's the lifeboat. I'm like, I'm going to be just as dry on the lifeboat as I would be on the Titanic. Like, oh, great. Like, we're going to be just fine. And I told my mom, I said, I'm going to be a manager. She said, what do you know about managing hip-hop artists? I said, I don't know anything. But I'm going to figure it out, just like I figure everything else out. Because when I was out there on that tour, I saw where the money was. And the money was not in being a cameraman. The manager is making all the money. I found this girl group. And the very first thing that was on my mind, just like everybody who gets into the music industry, is I'm going to get them a record deal. What did I do? I signed that girl group. I remember I went over to their grandma's house and I said, I'm going to make y'all stars. Just believe in me. I'm going to make you a star. I got a great relationship with Interscope Records. If y'all just sign with me as a manager, I'm going to make you a star. Well, they signed. And within 24 hours, Interscope Records committed to giving us a record deal. They say Soulja Boy might not like Charlie, but we do. He's got the Midas touch. He understands marketing. We're going to take a shot on anything Charlie touches. And my heart was set on that record deal, and we got that record deal. But that record deal meant nothing Because at the end of the day, it was all on me. I had to do the marketing. Yes, we were able to get on 106 and Park and get on the radio, but it all relied on me. And the record deal blew up. My artists, their heads got really big, and they're like, we're big artists now. We can't have an 18-year-old manager. And I remember one day they started acting funny. I got them a show in Washington, D.C., and you know when somebody is like looking for something wrong, they just like pick things that are just random, and it's just like, oh no, like, oh, they're just looking to maybe get rid of me as a manager because they're picking the craziest little things. I remember they got off stage in Washington, D.C., and they got mad at me for not giving them water. They're like, you didn't give us water when we got off stage. And I'm like, I got you a record deal. I got you on television. I got you on the radio. I got your fan base built. Well, they ended up leaving me for Sierra's manager. There were all these industry people in their head because we were focused on the industry instead of focusing on what was important is our fan base. I got fired. And I had to go right back to my mom's basement. And I told my mom, I got fired. And she said, are you going to sue him? I said, no, it's not worth the energy. I said, they're probably not going to make it without me anyways. Because I knew what I brought to the table. And they didn't make it. And I said, I messed up on this one. There were things I messed up on. One, I took them to a record label, and I realized that record labels really don't do all that much unless you're their top priority. So when I found my next group, their name was Dem Hard Hitters. They were on the east side of Atlanta. And I said, they were living in their mom's houses, and I was living in my mom's house. And I said, if you guys are just loyal, I will make you stars. And they believed in me. And I said, we aren't going to go get a record deal. We're going to do this ourselves, and we're going to focus on what's most important. And we're going to do what makes sense to us. When you're with a record label, they promote one song at a time. I said, we're going to promote 50 songs at a time. We're going to drop songs every week. We're going to release mixtapes every quarter. We're going to release hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of music because that just seems to make sense to me. That's how I want to consume music. And they believed in it. They believed in my vision. And I remember when I took things into my own hands and I got away from the mindset of relying on some big machine, basically, I was wanting to break all the rules because those rules just didn't make sense to me. I would drive from every radio station from Jackson, Mississippi, all the way to Washington, D.C. to promote our music. See, to get your song on radio, you have to have a lot of money. You have to have marketing budgets to hire the independent radio promoters. But I was living in my mom's basement. I didn't have money. But what I did have was heart and a strategy, and I wanted to impose my will. And I saw that the mix show DJs at the radio stations were the people who played the new music first, and the program directors actually listened to what the mix show DJs had to say about what's going to be the next big hits. So let's say I went to Montgomery, Alabama. I would make a list of all the mix show DJs. I would say, you know what, fellas, can I take you guys out to lunch? Who doesn't love free food? I would take them out to lunch. I'd give them hoodies that would say, salute the DJ, and I would vinyl press their names on the back. So they were customized salute the DJ hoodies. I would talk to them about our vision and our purpose and how we're building up our fan base. And they would listen. And they would appreciate that I wasn't just trying to email a record. I was going out and meeting with them face to face, showing them my passion. And I would ask them, can I meet with your program director? Well, they say, the program directors, only want to meet with the big record labels because the big record labels have the budgets to promote music. And I was like, I understand that, but what's his name? And I would show up to the radio station the next day. And sometimes these radio stations were just a small little box on the side of a 2-lane highway with a couple antennas in the back surrounded by a gated fence. And I would knock on the window and they would think I'm crazy. And I wouldn't leave. I always had this philosophy, like this is an opportunity for this person to have a story because I know what my finish line looks like. So if my finish line is to be one of the most successful people in music, then this is going to be a story in this program director's life to say, I remember when Charlie was knocking on my window of the radio station to beg me to play his music. Well, with Travis Porter, we took 3 records, top 20 in the country, without a record deal. We did it our way. Everybody would have told us that's not possible. But we did it our way. And it worked. It made sense. We weren't worrying about platinum albums. We weren't worrying about, being a #1 single on the charts. We weren't worrying about the bureaucracies and the way it works and being in Best Buys. We were giving away music. We were pressing the upload button more than everybody else. We had so many MySpace pages just to house all of our music. Back then on MySpace, you'd only be able to upload 8 songs onto a page. So if you looked at our top 8, our friends, it would be Travis Porter page 1, Travis Porter page 2, Travis Porter page 3, just so our music can exist. And it just made sense to us to just have these blitzes to where we had this thing called Travis Porter's iPod, where it had like 150 songs that we recorded in 1 year. And we fed our fan base constantly, and we did it our way. We broke every rule that the people who are fighting the previous war says that's not how wars are fought. Well, you know what's interesting about that? Previous wars, the armies would go onto a field, stand in a line 30 feet from each other and shoot each other. That was the war strategy. How effective was that previous war strategy? It makes no sense today. It's like, well, why don't you hide behind a tree and shoot somebody? Like that seems to make more sense. And that's, if we always listen to how they, quote unquote, have done things, we would still be going to war, standing right in front of somebody else, looking them right in their eye. He pulls out his gun, I pull out my gun, and we both basically are going to die. Whoever came up with that strategy, we look back at it and we're like, that makes no sense. And when I started taking things into my own hands and just did what made sense to me, I said, music should come out fast. There should be music dropping constantly. Well, why do you think hip-hop is the #1 genre in the world? Hip-hop is the only genre that moves fast. This is something we innovated 12, 15 years ago. This is something that Travis Porter and Street Execs and the Atlanta hip-hop scene, long before Spotify came out, we were using live mixtapes. Streaming is not new to hip-hop. We would drop mixtape after mixtape after mixtape. And now today that people have Spotify and can consume music how they want to, we see that people want albums fast. Record labels used to do an album every 2 years. That's how they used to think. And then people like me came into hip hop and said, no, we're going to break the rules. And this entire episode is about breaking the rules. And you can become #1 without the bureaucracies, without the record label, without the publishing company, because they might tell you it's impossible. But if we're looking at just the simplest title of this podcast episode right now, hip hop is the biggest in the world. And if you listen to 20 years ago, they would have said that is impossible. Hip hop will never be big. And yet, 70% of top 10 records are hip hop. I'm writing my book, and I think I just confirmed with myself that I should not go with a publishing company. I should not worry about the New York Times Bestseller. I have to take these things into my own hands, and I've got to do what makes sense to me. At the end of the day, why are we doing this anyways? Yeah, being on the New York Times bestseller list is a pretty cool club to be in. But that's not what determines if people read your book or not. I said listen because I usually listen to books. What determines if people listen to your book or not depends on how much it affects somebody's lives. And things spread that are amazing. A hit record will always find its way. A hit book will always find its way. So I believe I need to learn from my own story and not do what I did with Vistoso Bosses, but instead do what I did with Travis Porter, where we took 3 records top 20 in the country without a record deal, where we were touring and we were doing it all ourselves, and we weren't listening. We didn't have rabbit ears listening to what they said. We just looked inside and said, you know what, let's do what makes sense to us. So for those of y'all who are listening, yes, I say y'all, I'm from the South, I'm from Atlanta. For those of y'all that are listening, you can be the biggest in the world. And it is possible for everybody to be wrong. Let's get rid of our rabbit ears. Let's stop listening to what everybody else has to say, because they're going to voice their opinion when you're small, and when you defy them, they're still not even going to admit it. They're not even going to admit that they were wrong. So they really don't matter anyways. That is this episode of The Charlie Rocket Show. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, please, please share this with a friend. This is my 2nd episode, and I'm just starting off. Just like you. There's something in your life that you're probably just starting off at. And we're all like rockets. They all start off slow and then end up fast. I know this show is going to be one of the top 10 in the world. I know it is. I tell myself, it's already done. Time just hasn't caught up yet. And these stories are going to impact people's lives. I'm going to take current events and turn them into inspiration so people can understand what's going through my head and where I seek my positivity and where I seek my inspiration from. And I find it in the most peculiar places. I'm not sure how many other people out there would look at hip hop and see the inspiration in it. But I love the fact that something can break every rule and become the biggest thing in the world. And maybe you should do that too. Maybe you should start breaking a couple rules yourself. That's this episode. I'll catch you next time on The Charlie Rocket Show.